Today I would like to share with you a very important Upanishad, but a not so famous Upanishad, because it doesn't come under the 10 principal Upanishads which Sri Adi Shankaracharya gave the Bhashya, which belongs to Vedanta. It belongs to the 20 famous Upanishads, which belongs to the yoga philosophy. It's the Yogasara Upanishads. It's very important in yoga philosophy, and the other philosophies which practice yoga, they also follow this Upanishad. It's a very short Upanishad with only 14 mantras, and as usual it starts with the invocation mantra, that is the Shanti mantra. And these mantras are not in a very elaborate form like verses. They are in the form of sutras, that is the aphorisms. But they have very profound meaning. Each mantra in this Upanishad is very deep, and it completely explains the function and the structure of the mind and how the mind functions or behaves when we practice yoga, that is particularly the Ashtanga yoga, which is otherwise known as the Raja Yoga. Ashtanga yoga has 8 different steps. That is the Yama, self-restraint; Niyama, the general rules; Asana, posture; Pranayama, control of breath; Pratyahara, control of the senses; Dharana, focusing on one idea; meditation, continuous flow of that idea; and then the final state, superconscious state, that is the Samadhi. Samadhi is of 2 different types, that is the Savikalpa Samadhi and the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. In the Savikalpa Samadhi, the yogi is slightly aware of the difference between the knower, known, and the knowing object. He has a trace of that idea is there. But in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, absolutely there are no ideas. The mind is devoid of any ideas. So that is the superconscious state. A person practicing any one of these steps, or a person who is in the final superconscious state, is known as a yogi. In the yoga philosophy, according to the yoga philosophy, all these preliminary steps are very important to reach the final state. A person practicing the yoga, he must be very particular about the preliminary steps. Only then it will be easy for him to reach the final state. Yama, Niyama, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Asana, that is the posture, all these help a person to prepare the mind for the final state. In the Yogasara Upanishad, from the mantra 5, the functioning of the mind and how the mind behaves when we practice yoga, all these are very clearly given, but very briefly given. It's not given in a very elaborate form, but it's given very briefly but very clearly. According to the Yogasara Upanishad, the mind is made of a mind stuff, and that mind stuff is the very subtle matter. It's not hard like the matter, but it is the very subtlest form of matter. You cannot perceive it through the sense organs, but it's made of mind stuff known as chitta. On the surface of the chitta, a thought wave known as vritti arises. Actually, the vritti means it's a whirlpool, and when a thought arises, it creates a whirlpool on the mind stuff, that is the chitta. So a thought, a vritti arising on the chitta will remain on that chitta for a few seconds. It depends on how far we entertain the thought, and it depends upon the intensity of that thought. It remains for a few seconds, and then that vritti settles down as latent impression known as sanskar. Again, when a proper situation arises, this latent impression again gets activated and it again forms a vritti on the chitta. It's a continuous process. Whenever a vritti arises on the chitta will take the form of that vritti. For example, when the vritti is of a mango fruit, then the chitta takes the form of a mango fruit. So it's a continuous process. Whenever a vritti arises, the chitta gets modified and gets transformed according to the vritti. It's a never-ending process and it's just like how the waves appear on an ocean. So it's a continuous process. And when this vritti, the latent impression of the vritti is known as sanskar, and when it gets activated, it again creates a thought wave on the surface of the chitta. And how does this latent impression gets activated? It's activated by the Sushma Prana. This Sushma Prana is influenced by the food we take. It can be influenced by pranayama and it can be influenced by the lifestyle we follow. The mind stuff has three qualities, that is the sattva, rajas and tamas. Sattva is purity, rajas is activity and tamas is inertia, that is laziness. So any particular guna, quality cannot stand alone. It must be supported by the other two gunas. Only thing is a particular guna dominates at a particular time. As I said earlier, the Sushma Prana is influenced by the food we take. If we take sattvic food, then the Sushma Prana will be influenced in such a way so that it will activate only the sattvic latent impressions in the mind, or it creates the sattvic vritti. If we take rajasic food or tamasic food, and accordingly the Sushma Prana will be influenced, and then accordingly it will activate the rajasic or tamasic impressions in the chitta. So in that way, the activation of the latent impressions in the chitta can be influenced by the Sushma Prana, or it can be influenced by the pranayama. That's why when we take pranayama, we become more sattvic, or the thoughts in our mind gets reduced. That's why the preliminary steps of Ashtanga Yoga are very important to reach the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So in this way, the vrittis can be controlled or can be made sattvic by controlling the Sukshma Prana, and that can be influenced by the pranayama and the food we take and by the general lifestyle. Whenever a vritti arises in the chitta, a thought wave arises, and that becomes refined and it goes out of the mind as our thought. And this thought has the potential, energy and force to influence the whole universe. It depends upon the intensity of the thought. A yogi practicing Ashtanga Yoga, he will have a very few thoughts on the surface of the chitta. Very few thoughts, because the thoughts will be controlled by the pranayama and the food he intakes. In the Savikalpa Samadhi, there will be only very few vrittis. And in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi, absolutely there will be no vrittis on the chitta. And the chitta cannot get attached to the soul, devoid of the vrittis. So the chitta, it gets detached from the soul, and the yogi, he remains in his pure self-conscious state in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. The mind gets detached from him. The root of the forming of these vrittis in the mind state is the aham vritti, the thought of I. This attracts all the other vrittis. So the yogi practicing the nirvikalpa samadhi, he will not have even that aham vritti. He perfectly merges into the universal superconscious state. All the other vrittis, just like the other thoughts like the thinking mind, the ego, and the memory, all these are different functions or different kinds of vritti in the chitta. That's why the chitta is sometimes called as the thinking mind, manas, the memory, ahankara, different names this chitta has because it has different types of vrittis embedded in it. And these vrittis and the sanskars, they, even when we leave this body, they come along with us in a very Sushma form. And again it gets activated when we enter the next body. So all these are very clearly explained in the Yogasara Upanishad, and it's a very famous Upanishad as far as the yoga philosophy is concerned. And even the people practicing the other philosophies, they follow yoga philosophy when they perform Ashtanga Yoga. Thank you for watching.